The new BMW M5, speed, luxury, and the diet plan that didn't quite work out. But just how heavy is it? Ford F-150, built to carry heavy loads, but this truck is still lighter than the M5. Rolls-Royce Wraith. You'd think all that British luxury would tip the scales, but nope, the M5 says, hold my Bavarian beer. Two Mazda Miatas. Two for the price of one, and combined, they still don't match the M5's weight. Humvee M998, ready for combat and off-road mayhem, yet still lighter than the M5. A Rhino. Even the Nature's tank comes up short. I guess the M5 skipped the leg day. But does weight really matter? No, it does not. Oh my God, this car is ridiculous fast. Ridiculous fast in straight line. You're watching BMW Blog, and today we'll be testing the all-new 2025 BMW M5 sedan G90. In this video, we're gonna talk about its weight, how it drives on the road. We're gonna talk about how it stacks up against its predecessors, and then of course, how does it compare to the BMW XM? You might be wondering why, because they share the same drivetrain. So make sure to stay tuned until the end, because we have a lot of things to tell you about this new M5. Let's kick things off with specs and weight. The new M5 tips the scales at a hefty 5,390 pounds, or around 2,445 kilograms. That's significantly more than the F90 M5 competition, which weighs in at around 4,370 pounds. But does it feel heavy behind the wheel? We'll get into that shortly. Under the hood, the new BMW M5 comes with a 4.4-liter twin-turbo S68 engine, which of course is paired with an electric motor to make this a plug-in hybrid drivetrain. Total power output, 717 horsepower and 738 pounds-feet of torque. Enough to take this car from 0 to 62 miles per hour, 0 to 100 kph in about 3.5 seconds. The V8 itself produces 577 horsepower and 553 pounds-feet of torque, with a peak torque available between 1,800 and 5,400 RPM. It actually hits its maximum output between 5,600 RPM and 6,500. The red line comes in at a nice 7,200 RPM. Just like the BMW XM, the electric motor is integrated into the 8-speed ZF automatic transmission. The electric motor itself makes 194 horsepower and 207 pounds-feet of torque. With all this power, you need serious rubber and brakes to keep it under control. The M5 comes equipped with stagger wheels, 20-inch front and 21 inches in the back, a size larger than its predecessor. The wheels are wrapped in tires measuring 285 by 40 and 295 by 35. For braking, it's got 410 millimeters front compound discs, and if you opt, like in this case, for the carbon ceramic setup, you get even bigger discs, 420 millimeters, which offer incredible stopping power, as you've seen already in the intro sequence. Flat out, the new BMW M5 reaches a top speed of 155 miles per hour or 250 kilometers per hour, but if you get the optional M Drivers package, the limiter is raised to 189 miles per hour or 305 kilometers per hour. How about driving in all-electric mode? The M5 won't exceed 87 miles per hour or 140 kilometers per hour on battery power alone. And you'll want to drive even slower if you want to retain that 67 kilometers WLTP range. Speaking of the electric range, in the US, it's rated at 25 EPA standard. Let's also talk about the driving modes, because there are quite a few of them, and they're quite important because this car is the jack of all trades. First off, there is a hybrid mode, which is the default setting, and in this mode, it utilizes the full system output from both the V8 and the electric motor. In comfort, the electric motor is used more often to optimize efficiency. In the Sport and Sport Plus modes, the combustion engine is always engaged. If the battery charge is low, the engine's load point will increase to recharge the battery. Of course, if you want to drive all electric, all you have to do is switch into the electric mode. In this case, the V8 engine only kicks in if you activate manual mode or use kickdown. If you're getting the iDrive Professional, you're also getting the dynamic modes. The dynamic mode actually activates both the combustion engine and the electric motor. It also prepares the cooling system for track use, ensuring balance and sustained high performance. Now, if you want even more from your car, you're going to go into Dynamic Plus, which offers even more aggressive engine mapping and gear shifts, making it perfect for a racetrack. Lastly, you have the e-control mode, the same as you've seen in the BMW XM. This mode maintains or even increases the battery charge by recuperating energy or increasing the engine's load points. This is ideal for preserving battery capacity for city driving. There is a lot that you can do with the new BMW M5. The customization list is quite extensive, and that starts with the suspension as well. Just like in all the other BMW cars, you can customize the steering, the suspension setup, the gear shifts, the engine mapping, so on and so forth, which changes the character of the car quite a bit. In this video, I'm going to go through an entire list of different settings to show you what it means to daily drive this car, but also to have some fun with the new M5. But let's start with some Autobahn driving. So here we go. I mean, just ridiculous. Unbelievable fast. I drove this car a few months ago on the track and I complained about the weight. I mean, clearly I was coming out of an M4 CS and I was trying to push the M5 the same way as I did with the M4 CS. And it wasn't fair because the M4 CS makes you a better driver even if you're not. You feel like you're a Formula One driver for a second. Versus the M5 with its weight, you need to handle the car a little bit different. So there was a lot of body roll in that case, there was a lot of braking, there was a lot of tire screeching. So of course I complained about the weight quite a bit. But in straight line, I mean, kick down the gas pedal and here we go. I mean, 230, 250. I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, 280 in like no time, literally no time. And the car has a lot to give. And right now, I mean, you can see right now, I had to brake really hard and you feel the weight, of course. I mean, I was going 280, which is insane by American standards, but carbon ceramic brakes, they're good. I mean, they're good. Here we go again. It's downshift. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, Jesus. Over 1,000 Newton meters of torque. Monster. Thank you, Germany, for the Autobahn and unlimited speeds. Thank you very much. Keep it that way. Don't ever change the laws. BMW says that the M5 weight distribution is nearly 50-50, but with a slight rear wheel bias. To achieve this balance, the chassis has been heavily engineered. One nice thing about the new M5 is the fact that it comes standard with the integral active steering, which turns the rear wheels either in sync or opposite to the front, depending on the speed. It has a steering angle up to 1.5 degrees. The benefits? Of course, it reduces the turning circles and easier low-speed maneuvers, and it adds stability and comfort during high-speed lane changes. Push the new M5 hard, like you were doing it today, and you get greater agility and directional stability. I've always said this, the integral active steering, it's a must. It's a must in many, many large BMWs. So let's try the electric mode. I'm going to switch in electric mode, so now it's all electric. You can see the cabin is quite nicely isolated from the outside. Very, very quiet inside. And right now I still have about 54 kilometers of range. I started at 67, I believe. But of course I did a few launch controls and nearly top speed on the Autobahn. So of course that's gonna eat the battery quite a bit. Shifting, pretty smooth in the electric mode. I mean, it's exactly what you expect from an electric car, I would say. Of course, this is perfect not for highway driving because right now I'm going quite slow to use this mode, but more for city driving. Now let's try the hybrid mode. So the hybrid mode, like I said, you're getting both components to work together, and this essentially provides you probably the best transition from the sport mode to the electric mode if you want to, and you let the car make that decision for you. If I do dynamic, of course things get a little bit stiffer, a little bit more engaging, and then if you go into dynamic plus, even more so. I can also hit the setup button right here, and then I can go into these additional settings. So right now everything gets in comfort. It's a very flat and smooth surface, so of course I'm not going to put the suspension to work quite hard in this case, but it's exactly what you'd expect from a sedan. It floats nicely, it's many ways very uneventful and extremely comfortable. Now of course if I go into the M2 mode, I can feel already, and I can hear already the engine being a little bit more revved up. Steering, it's a little bit stiffer, getting a little bit more feedback from the road. I'm getting a little bit more bounciness on the road. Of course, I can feel those dampers working a little bit harder, yet it's not too stiff. So if I were to compare this to the XM, I mean, honestly, I complain a lot about the XM because the suspension in that car, it's a little bit too stiff. In the M5, it just doesn't feel as stiff. In straight line, even at high speeds, you've already seen the car being quite stable on the road. You feel in control of the car at all time. Even though there isn't a lot of feedback from the road coming through the front wheels, the inputs from the steering, they're quite sharp, which is something that we've experienced in a lot of newer BMWs. One question that I received from one of our readers was whether this car feels planted on imperfect or uneven surfaces. And even though there are not that many in Germany, thankfully, there are quite a few here that I could actually test. So to answer that question, I could tell you that the car does feel planted on the road. It does feel quite stable, but at the same time, it's not overly sporty. So if you're concerned about the ride quality, even on uneven surfaces, I would say don't be. It's actually quite good, even when you drive in the sport mode. Of course, you can also shift your own gears by using the shift paddles behind the steering wheel. They work just the same as in any other BMWs, and especially in any other M cars. You've seen in the M3 and M4, and of course in the XM. Downshift on the left, upshift on the right. I mean, this ZF transmission, it's so good. I am surprised every single time that I drive a new BMW how much better the transmission actually gets. It is by far the best 8-speed transmission on the market today, and it works brilliantly with BMW engines, especially with the B58, in this case with the S68, and of course with the S58 in the M2 and M3. Even though this is still a business luxury sedan, of course you're not going to have the same sound isolation like in a 7 Series or in a high-end SUV. So essentially you are getting a little bit more noise coming from the outside inside the cabin. And to demonstrate this, I'm actually going to run a sound test right now on the highway at about 100 kilometers per hour. So I'm going to fire up a sound level meter. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to show you exactly what we're getting at about 100 kilometers per hour on the Autobahn. So if you look at the L max, it's about 83.5 decibels. If you look at the average, it's about 73 decibels. The other thing that you're getting in the new BMW M5, it's a boost mode, and it works exactly like in other BMWs. Hold on the left pedal, and you're getting this boost mode, and the car just takes off. Now let's talk about how the M5 feels driving inside city centers, like right here, small village around Munich. So I'm going to go into the electric mode actually. So once again, very silent right now, all electric. Still plenty of power. I mean, you get 194 horsepower in the electric mode, so that's enough usually if you're cruising in city centers. Right now I'm behind a big tractor, so this is the perfect time where you can use that electric mode. Of course, if you leave the car in the hybrid mode, it will decide for you if it's going to use the V8 or if it's going to use the all-electric mode. But if you want to just make sure that you're always in that electric mode, just quickly switch into that setting. If your commute is less than 60 kilometers or around 25 miles, then I guess this is a good choice for you, because honestly, you don't need to push this car inside city centers. You can push it anyway. Neither in Munich, definitely not in Chicago or New York and all these places. And essentially this is what makes the M5 a little bit special compared maybe to its competitors, because it does offer this all-electric drivetrain. For example, if you look at the new Porsche 911, Different car, of course, that has a different interpretation of what a hybrid mode should be, and it's more about making sure that there is no turbo lag and you're getting the best performance out of the 911 GTS, for example. In this case, it's really about using electromobility to your advantage. Overall, in this mode, the car feels quite compliant, uneventful, very comfortable to drive, and honestly, I do see myself using this mode if I'm daily commuting in Chicago. But let's say you want to have some fun, because we just found some nice back roads. We're going to go into Dynamic Plus, and here we go. I can't show the speedometer, I really can't. I don't want to. But you can probably see how fast this car really is. I mean, it just takes off. Once again, you won't feel the weight unless you go to the track. You're not gonna go to the track because it's an M5. So if you're worried about that weight like I was, I'm gonna tell you right now that you shouldn't be. So right now everything is dialed up to Sport and Sport Plus. You can see I'm cornering quite nicely here. Turns in nicely, tiny bit of body roll, just enough to give you an impression of your lateral forces, and that usually helps. I don't want the car to be too rigid either. I do want it to have a little bit of body roll so I can feel these lateral forces, so I know exactly what the car is doing. So pretty good on that. If it's too flat, if there is no body roll, that doesn't necessarily make it the best driver's car. The speed of the roll, it's actually more important, and it has to be precise. BMW feels understeer is safer in the BMW M5, seeing as they equip the car with the staggered wheel setup, which I understand. It produces a slight understeer. Understeer, driver is scared. Oversteer, the passenger is scared. Steering feedback, of course, a very popular question when it comes to M cars. Clearly, you're not getting the same steering feedback that you get from a smaller car. I guess you're getting a lot more from an M3 and M4 and from an M2. In many ways, it does feel a little bit soft, a little bit dead, but you are getting these sharp inputs when needed. So essentially, at higher speeds, when the car needs to be more composed, the steering inputs are quite sharp. We test the brakes a little bit as well. Let's see how they feel. So, really nice feel actually. Doesn't seem to fade. Great stopping power immediately. Of course, the nose loads up a little bit, especially high speeds, but I do like the feel of this brake pedal. Very good actually. Nice, modulated, and of course if you apply enough pressure, it will stop the car, so that's very good. I also like the throttle steering in this one, and we're gonna test a little bit more. So building up some speed, and let's see how we throttle steers, because I love to do that, especially with M cars. So using the brakes a little bit less, breaking down a little bit, steering by throttle, very good. Stays composed, lift off the gas pedal. Very nice actually. Very good. You can see right here, small adjustments to the steering. The car just dances nicely on the road, takes on the perfect line, corners nicely, brakes, once again, very good. And here we go again, do some throttle steering, and now acceleration out of the corner, and here we go. Ridiculous. I mean, this car should not be legal on the road, because it will either get you in a lot of trouble and a lot of tickets, or it will try to kill you. It's that fast and that good, so be careful with this car. Let's do a little bit more spirited driving. What's nice about this engine is the fact that you really have that low RPM band, which makes a huge difference, because if you have a heavy car like the M5, you want to have that torque available as soon as possible. And in many ways, compared to the F90 M5, I do feel like you're getting that torque a lot sooner, and also compared to the XM, it does feel like it's coming a little bit sooner. Of course, I haven't driven them back to back, so I can't give you a really fair assessment, but that's my impression compared to the last time when I drove the XM. So again, if you're in the sport setting and you're going through this nice curvy roads here, you will get a better chassis overall. You can feel the car getting plenty of grip at the front and in the back. I pushed the car quite hard in one of those corners. I never lost grip. So I recall calling the previous generation F90 M5 a grip monster, and I don't think that has changed in this car either. All right, so perfect timing to test the grip a little bit more because it's raining, and it's not just that, it's also cold today. So 8 degrees Celsius, which is about 48, 49 Fahrenheit. Clearly that's pushing the limits of the Michelin PS4S. They are good tires in the rain, so usually that's not an issue, but you're also dealing with a lot of power in this car and a lot of weight. So of course, you gotta be a little bit smoother on the steering. The inputs should be definitely less aggressive, so that way you're not going to deal with the loss of traction at the front or in the back. I'm going to read you one more question that I received from one of our readers, which deals with the driving dynamics. What is the handling like, the driver feedback, the balance of the dynamic dimensions, thrust, braking, and cornering? Do you feel like braking is sufficient to deal with the acceleration? And is the handling not overwhelmed? Are you getting the same driving dynamics like in an M2, M3, or M4? Of course not. They're very different cars, they're very different applications, and very different customers for the car. But overall, this is still a very engaging M product. When it comes to the overall balance of the car in between the acceleration, braking, and driving dynamics, I feel like BMW has done a fantastic job with this car. Considering once again how heavy the car is, this is probably the best case scenario that could be achieved with this car, even though I feel like it leaves a little bit more room for a car like the M5 CS. When it comes to the suspension, now that I have a chance to really drive on different type of roads, once again, I feel like they've done a fantastic job with it. The damper setup is quite good. I can tell there is a lot more travel than in the previous M5s, I would say. So you're getting this comfort from the car, especially on uneven roads. But once you're pushing the car quite hard, they stiffen up a little bit, and it gives you that planted feel on the road. So here is the driving assistant mode in the BMW M5. You can see the car does the acceleration for you, also does the braking and everything else. Of course, it's got a level 2, not a level 2 plus. So essentially, it's not endless hands-free driving. I'm getting the prompt right now to put my hands on the steering wheel. And of course, that's the level 2 functionality that you've seen in the past. Why isn't there a level 2 plus or level 3? Well, BMW told me that this is still a driver's car and it's not like a 7 Series limousine type of car. And this is why you're only getting the level 2 in the M5. After driving about 250 kilometers today, I can tell a bit more about the comfort of the seats as well. Of course, the design of the seats, it's not as aggressive as you would see in the M3 and M4, and that's to be expected because this is a business limousine, a sports limousine, so you want to have the most comfortable seats as possible, but at the same time, you do want them to be on the sporty side a little bit, just in case you want to corner and have some fun with the car. So from that perspective, they do hug me quite nicely, but at the same time, highway driving, Autobahn driving, they were extremely comfortable over long distances. The seating position in the car is exactly what you expect from BMW, a little bit driver's oriented. You're getting this nice and beefy steering. Some love it, some hate it. It doesn't bother me too much. I've got used to this thickness of the rim. Of course, you're getting the flat bottom, which helps quite a bit. I've been in and out of the car a lot today because I had to film and change angles and do all of that, and it makes my life a little bit easier because I can slide my feet out. I'm 6'2", so that makes a difference for me. You're getting iDrive 8.5 in the car, and it's actually quite responsive. I feel like they've done a lot of improvements to the system from the first time that I've tested, so there is no lag in switching between screens, and overall it's a really well done system, considering that you lost some of the physical buttons, so you have to deal a lot more with touch. It's still a pretty good system. So after pushing the car quite hard today and having a lot of fun, like right now, let's talk about how it compares to the F90 M5 competition and also to the XM. So let's start with the previous generation M5. Completely different characters, right? This is a more powerful car, but also a lot heavier, versus the F90 M5 competition was the right balance in between power and weight. And this is why that car is being cherished quite a bit by its owners, because it offers extremely engaging driving dynamics. Of course, straight line performance, it's a lot better in this car because of the additional torque and additional power. But of course, when it comes to the pure MDNA, the F90 M5 will deliver on that front a little bit more than in this G90 M5. In other ways, I feel like this G90 M5, it's more of a daily driver. It's the car that has a wider gap in between the driving modes, something that we've seen in recent BMWs as well. So essentially you're getting this even more pronounced dual character in the M5, or if you want to use it as a daily driver, if maybe the surfaces are not completely even, then you can have that really comfortable ride in that comfort mode. If you dial things up to the Sport and Sport Plus, of course, that's going to change the character of the car. It will become a lot more aggressive. But even though I feel like it's not as aggressive as it was in the F90 M5 competition, which was quite stiff and quite dynamic, to be honest, especially when pushed hard. Now, which one should you buy? Well, that's a really tough question, because this does feel like the more modern car. Of course, 7 years later, BMW has improved the technology quite a bit, especially inside the cabin, driving assistant features and all of that. So as a daily driver, I would say the G90 M5 is the better choice. Now, if you're looking for that pure M DNA, then I would say the F90 M5 competition will absolutely deliver on that front. I've had a lot of fun with that car on the track. I felt like it was more of a track car than the G90 M5 was. Now let's talk about the XM, because it shares the same drivetrain. And of course, a lot of people will compare these two cars, even though they're very different. You have a sedan versus an SUV. You have 5,400 pounds in this car versus nearly 6,000 pounds in the XM, and you have a similar power output. So essentially, this car will be the more engaging car. It will be the better car overall. I also feel like the drivetrain has been finely tuned. I feel like they've learned quite a bit from the XM. They've refined, especially the electric mode. I feel like the shifting, it's a little bit better in this car. The transition in the hybrid mode, it's also a lot nicer from electric to the V8. So I can tell that they've done some software improvements there, because there is no hardware change from what I understand. So does weight matter? Not really. Unless you want to set some track records, unless you want to prove your friends that you have the bigger car, then weight doesn't really matter. Because in this case, the BMW engineers, they've done a fantastic job keeping that weight in check. One, by giving the car more power, and two, by putting together a really nice package that still retains some of that M5 DNA while giving you more comfort for your daily driving. So kudos to the BMW engineering team.